My name is Marcus Hale, and 3 days ago, I was just a janitor cleaning office buildings at night while my CEO wife seated me at the staff table in front of her rich friends like I was something to be ashamed of. When they called me janitor trash and laughed about how I knew mops better than menus, she just sat there and smiled along with them. What they didn't know was that the elderly man I'd been helping at work had just left me $12 million and controlling shares of a tech company, including the power to destroy the very deal my wife was trying to close. But here's the thing about quiet revenge. Sometimes the most devastating move is the one no one sees coming. Tonight, I'm about to show my wife and her elite friends what happens when you underestimate the man you think you can walk all over. If you're watching this story unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from, because you're going to want to see how this ends. Marcus Hale adjusted his tie in the bathroom mirror one last time. The navy blue wasn't expensive, but it was clean and pressed. He'd bought it 3 months ago when Ava first started bringing him to these fancy dinners. Back then, she'd smiled when he wore it. Tonight, that smile felt like a memory from another lifetime. "You almost ready?" Ava called from the bedroom. Her voice had that edge it got before important events. Sharp, impatient. "Coming," Marcus said, straightening his shoulders. He walked into their bedroom and found her adjusting diamond earrings in the vanity mirror. She looked perfect, like always. Her blonde hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. The black dress probably cost more than he made in 2 weeks cleaning office buildings. She glanced at him in the mirror. "You look nice." The words should have felt warm. Instead, they sat cold in the air between them. "Thank you," he said. "You look beautiful." Ava stood and smoothed her dress. "Remember what we talked about, okay? These people are important investors. Tonight is about making them comfortable." Marcus nodded. They'd had this conversation before. Be polite. Smile. Don't mention work. Don't draw attention. Make Ava look good. The ride to the Whitmore Club passed in silence. Marcus drove Ava's silver sedan through the hills of San Francisco, watching the city lights flicker below them. The club sat on top of Nob Hill like a crown, all white columns and heavy doors. Old money lived here, the kind that didn't need to prove itself to anyone. Marcus pulled up to the valet stand and handed the keys to Jonah, a young black man about his own age. Their eyes met for a second and Marcus saw something there. Understanding, maybe. They both knew what it meant to work in places like this. "Have a good evening, sir," Jonah said with a professional smile. "You too," Marcus replied. Inside, the club felt like stepping back in time. Dark wood panels covered the walls. Oil paintings of old white men in desk suits stared down from gilded frames. The air smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Ava's friends were already seated in the main dining room. Marcus recognized them from previous gatherings. Evan Pierce sat at the head of the table, his blonde hair perfectly styled, his smile too wide. Next to him sat Tessa Mills, a venture capitalist who always looked like she was calculating something. Grant Hoffman rounded out the group, quiet but watching everything with sharp eyes. "Darling!" Evan stood as they approached. He kissed Ava's cheeks in that way rich people did. "You look stunning as always." "Thank you," Ava said, her whole body relaxing into the familiar rhythm of this world. Evan turned to Marcus with that same wide smile. "And Marcus, good to see you again." They shook hands. Evan's grip was firm, almost challenging. "How's work treating you?" "Can't complain," Marcus said simply. "That's the spirit," Evan laughed. "Always grateful for honest work, right?" Something in his tone made Marcus's chest tighten, but he just smiled and nodded. "Actually," Ava said, her voice bright and cheerful, "I thought Marcus might be more comfortable over there." She gestured toward a smaller table near the kitchen doors. "It's quieter, less crowded." Marcus felt the words hit him like cold water. He looked at the table she meant. It was where the staff sat during their breaks, where people who didn't belong in the main dining room got placed. "Oh," he said quietly. The sound came out smaller than he meant it to. "Just for tonight," Ava added quickly, but she wasn't looking at him anymore. She was already settling into her chair with her friends. Marcus walked to the side table alone. His feet felt heavy. The chair scraped against the floor when he pulled it out. He sat down and looked across the room at his wife, who was already deep in conversation about quarterly reports and market projections. A server approached his table. She was young, maybe early 20s, with kind eyes and tired hands. "Can I get you something to drink, sir?" she asked. "Water's fine," Marcus said. Then, because she looked like she was working hard and deserved kindness, he added, "Thank you, Lila." Her name tag was small and silver, pinned to her black uniform. She smiled, surprised. "Of course. I'll be right back." From his table, Marcus could hear pieces of conversation from the main group, business talk mostly, numbers and strategies and deals in the works. Then, Evan's voice rose above the rest. "You know, Ava's got such a practical approach to everything, even her choice in—" He gestured vaguely in Marcus's direction. "Company." The table laughed. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind that came easy to people who'd never had to worry about being laughed at. "What do you mean?" Tessa asked, though her smile suggested she already knew. "Well," Evan lowered his voice, but not enough. "She knows the value of keeping things grounded. Someone who understands mops better than menus, you know? Good help is hard to find." More laughter. Ava's laugh mixed in with the rest, light and musical. She didn't look in Marcus's direction. Marcus's hands curled into fists under the table. Heat crept up his neck. He wanted to stand, walk over there, say something. But what? What could he say that wouldn't make things worse? What words could he use that wouldn't just prove their point? Instead, he breathed slowly and uncurled his fingers. He thought about his sister Renee, who was probably finishing her nursing shift at the hospital right now. She always said that dignity came from inside. Nobody could take it unless you let them. Lila returned with his water. "Here you go, sir." "Thank you," Marcus said. Then, because he needed to talk to someone who treated him like a person, he added, "How long have you been working here?" "About 6 months," she said, glancing around to make sure her manager wasn't watching. "It's good work. Steady." "That's important," Marcus said. He meant it. Steady work was a blessing, even when the people you served thought you were invisible. They talked quietly for a few minutes about small things, the weather, the city, how the Giants were doing this season. Normal conversation between two people who understood what it meant to work hard for a living. Meanwhile, the main table's conversation continued. Marcus caught more words floating over. Brand positioning, market perception, strategic partnerships. Then Ava's voice, clearer than the rest. "The important thing is knowing your audience, understanding what they expect to see." Marcus looked at her then, really looked. She was in her element, confident and sharp and brilliant. This was the woman he'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, the one who'd talked about changing the world through technology, who'd stayed up all night helping him study for his GED, who'd cried happy tears when he graduated. But tonight, she'd put him at the overflow table like he was something to be managed. The evening dragged on. Marcus ate his dinner quietly while the main table moved through courses and wine pairings. He watched his wife charm her investors, watched her light up when they laughed at her jokes. She was good at this, better than good. She was born for rooms like this. Finally, around 9:15, the evening started winding down. Business cards were exchanged, hands were shaken, plans were made for follow-up meetings. Ava appeared at Marcus's table, her cheeks flushed from wine and success. Ready to go? Sure, Marcus said, standing. They walked out together, but the space between them felt like a canyon. In the parking area, Jonah brought the car around. He nodded at Marcus respectfully. Have a good night, sir. You too, Jonah. Marcus tipped him $5 from his own wallet. It was money he couldn't really spare, but respect was more important than cash. The drive home started in silence. Ava stared out the window at the city lights sliding by. Finally, she spoke. That went well, I think. Evan seems really interested in the expansion proposal. Good, Marcus said. More silence. Then, at a red light, Ava turned to look at him. You're upset. It wasn't a question. I'm not upset, Marcus said carefully. I'm thinking. About what? The light turned green. Marcus drove through the intersection before answering. About how you introduced me tonight. I didn't introduce you. You've met them all before. That's exactly what I mean. Ava sighed. Marcus, you know how these things work. It's about optics. These people have certain expectations. Expectations about what? About, she gestured vaguely, about everything. The image we project. The brand we represent. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. What brand is that? You know what I mean. No, Marcus said quietly. I really don't. They pulled into the parking garage of their building. The concrete walls echoed with the sound of the engine. Marcus parked in their assigned spot and turned off the car. In the sudden silence, he could hear both of them breathing. I heard every word, Marcus said finally. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking slightly. At dinner, I heard what Evan said. I heard you laugh. Ava's face went pale. Marcus, mops better than menus, Marcus repeated. Good help is hard to find. I didn't say those things. No, but you laughed, and you put me at the staff table. Ava looked down at her hands. It's complicated. It's really not, Marcus said. He opened his car door. It's actually pretty simple. They rode the elevator to their floor in silence. Inside their apartment, Ava kicked off her heels and headed for the bedroom. Marcus went to the kitchen. He needed to do something with his hands. He opened the dishwasher and started loading the breakfast dishes they'd left that morning. Normal things. Coffee mugs, cereal bowls, the remnants of a life that had felt real just 12 hours ago. A glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the kitchen floor. The sound was sharp and final in the quiet apartment. Everything okay? Ava called from the bedroom. Fine, Marcus called back. Just a glass. He knelt down and carefully picked up the pieces. His hands were steady now. Cleaning up messes was something he knew how to do. Something he was good at. Something honest. As he swept up the last of the glass, Marcus made a decision. He wouldn't make a scene. He wouldn't yell or demand apologies or try to make Ava understand what she'd done. Those were performances, and he was tired of performing. Instead, he would simply stop. Stop pretending it was okay. Stop making excuses for her. Stop performing the role of grateful husband who should be thankful for whatever scraps of respect he got. He set his alarm for his night shift and lay down on the couch. The bedroom felt too far away, tonight. Through the walls, he could hear Ava moving around, getting ready for bed. Normal sounds from a life that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. No more performing, he whispered to himself in the dark. Tomorrow was Saturday. He had work to do. Real work at the office building downtown where he'd been cleaning for 2 years. Where people like Luis the security guard treated him with respect. Where his value wasn't determined by whether he made anyone else look good. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but his mind kept going back to the Whitmore Club, to the sound of laughter that cut like glass, to the feeling of being made small in front of people who mattered to his wife. He thought about Mr. Hart, the elderly man who lived in one of the buildings Marcus cleaned. They'd become friends over the past few months, ever since Marcus had helped him after a fall in the lobby. Mr. Hart was different from most of the wealthy people Marcus encountered. He asked questions, real questions, about Marcus's life, his dreams, his thoughts on everything from chess to philosophy. Character, Mr. Hart had said during one of their conversations, isn't what you do when people are watching. It's what you do when you're alone with yourself. Marcus had thought he understood that then. Now, lying on his couch in the dark, he was beginning to understand what Mr. Hart really meant. Character was also knowing when to stop accepting less than you deserved, even from people you loved, especially from people you loved. The city hummed outside his window. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Life going on, people working through the night, people like him who understood the value of honest work and dignity earned rather than given. Marcus pulled the blanket up to his chin and finally fell asleep. In a few hours, he would go to work. He would clean offices and empty trash cans and mop floors. And for the first time in months, he wouldn't feel ashamed of any of it, because tomorrow he would start figuring out what came after no more performing. Marcus's alarm buzzed at 11:45 p.m. He'd only slept for a couple hours, but his body was used to the night shift schedule. He sat up on the couch, his neck stiff from the awkward angle. The apartment was dark except for the glow of city lights through the windows. He showered quietly, brushed his teeth, and put on his work uniform. Navy blue pants, matching shirt with his name embroidered over the pocket. Simple clothes for honest work. As he laced up his work boots, he heard Ava stirring in the bedroom. Marcus! Her voice was sleepy, confused. Just heading to work, he said through the door. Okay. Love you. The words hung in the air. Marcus paused, his hand on the doorknob. 3 small words that used to feel like home. Now they felt complicated. Love you too, he said finally, because it was still true, even if everything else was broken. The streets were quiet at midnight. Marcus drove his old Honda through empty intersections, past closed shops and flickering streetlights. Downtown San Francisco at night belonged to different people than the daytime city. Night shift workers, security guards, cab drivers, people who kept the world running while everyone else slept. He parked in the employee lot behind the office tower and badged in through the service entrance. Luis, the night security guard, looked up from his desk with a smile. Hey, Marcus. How you doing tonight? Can't complain, Marcus said, though the words felt automatic. You? Same old, same old. Building's quiet tonight. Most of the offices cleared out early. Marcus nodded and headed for the supply closet to get his cart. Mop bucket, cleaning supplies, trash bags, vacuum, tools of his trade. Simple, honest tools that never lied to him or made him feel small. He started on the 15th floor and worked his way down. Each office had its own rhythm. Some were neat and organized, others looked like small tornadoes had blown through them. Marcus cleaned them all the same way, thoroughly, with pride in his work. As he mopped the hallway, his mind drifted back to the dinner, to Ava's laugh mixing with her friend's laughter, to the way she'd looked right through him when she pointed to the staff table. But he also remembered other things, earlier memories, better ones, like the night they'd first met, 2 years ago at a coffee shop near her office. She'd been working late on a presentation, frustrated and tired. Marcus had been there studying for his GED, books spread across a corner table. When her laptop died and she nearly cried from stress, he'd offered to help, showed her how to recover her files from a backup she didn't know existed. They'd talked for hours that night about technology, about dreams, about the way the city looked different depending on which hill you stood on. She'd been impressed that he was getting his high school equivalency while working full-time. He'd been amazed by her passion for building software that could help small businesses compete with big corporations. You see things differently, she'd said as they walked to their cars. I like that. 3 months later, she'd asked him to move in with her. 6 months after that, they'd gotten married at City Hall with just Renee and a courthouse photographer as witnesses. Ava had worn a simple white dress from a department store. Marcus had worn his navy tie, the same one he'd worn tonight. That woman felt like a different person now. Or maybe she was the same person, and Marcus was finally seeing parts of her he'd been too in love to notice before. He finished the 15th floor and moved down to 14. This floor housed Hart Technologies, the small software company run by Mr. Lionel Hart. Marcus had been cleaning these offices for 8 months now, ever since the previous janitor retired. Most nights, the Hart Tech offices were empty, but sometimes Mr. Hart worked late, hunched over his computer or studying chess problems from old books. He was in his late 70s with white hair and sharp blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The first time they'd met, Marcus had found him on the floor of his office after a fall. I'm fine, Mr. Hart had insisted, but Marcus could see he was shaken. Just lost my balance reaching for a file. Marcus had helped him to his chair and gotten him a glass of water. Then, instead of just finishing his cleaning and leaving, he'd stayed for a few minutes to make sure the old man was really okay. You didn't have to do that, Mr. Hart had said. Yes, I did, Marcus had replied simply. That conversation had led to others. Mr. Hart was curious about everything: Marcus's work, his studies, his thoughts on technology and business and life. Unlike most of the wealthy people Marcus encountered, Mr. Hart listened to the answers, really listened. You have good instincts, Mr. Hart had said one night as they discussed a chess problem. Business is like chess. It's not about the flashiest moves. It's about thinking 3 steps ahead and protecting what matters. Tonight, Mr. Hart's office was dark. Marcus cleaned around his desk carefully, straightening papers without reading them, emptying the trash, wiping down surfaces. On the bookshelf sat a framed photo of a much younger Mr. Hart with a woman who must have been his wife. Both of them were smiling at the camera, but their eyes were on each other. Marcus finished the floor and moved down to 13. As he worked, he thought about the difference between Mr. Hart's respectful curiosity and Evan Pierce's condescending jokes. Both men were wealthy. Both men were white, but only one of them saw Marcus as a full human being. The rest of the shift passed quietly. Marcus cleaned each floor with the same careful attention he always gave. This work mattered. These offices would be clean and ready when people arrived in the morning. That was something real, something useful. By 5 a.m., he was finishing up the lobby. Luis was getting ready to hand things over to the day security team. See you Monday night, Luis said as Marcus packed up his cart. See you Monday. Marcus drove home as the sun came up over the Bay Bridge. The city was starting to wake up. Early joggers on the sidewalks, coffee shops turning on their signs, a whole new day beginning. At home, Ava was still sleeping. Marcus showered again and climbed into bed carefully, trying not to wake her, but she stirred anyway. How was work? She mumbled against her pillow. Fine, Marcus said. Go back to sleep. She reached for his hand under the covers. Her fingers were warm and familiar. For a moment, Marcus let himself remember how this used to feel. Safe, like coming home to the person who knew him best. But then, he remembered the sound of her laughter at dinner, and he gently moved his hand away. Saturday morning arrived gray and foggy. Marcus woke up around 10 to the sound of activity in the kitchen. Ava was setting up for another one of her networking brunches. She did these once a month, invited investors and potential partners over for casual conversation that always turned into business deals. Morning, she said when he appeared in the doorway. Could you run out and grab some ice? The caterer forgot to bring enough. Marcus looked at the scene. Expensive catered food arranged on silver trays, fresh flowers in crystal vases, everything perfect and impressive. The kind of setup designed to make rich people feel comfortable spending money. Sure, he said. Thanks. And maybe, she paused, not quite meeting his eyes. Maybe you could just keep a low profile today. Some of these people are pretty traditional. The words hit him like a physical blow. Keep a low profile. In his own home. Traditional how? Marcus asked quietly. You know, conservative. They have certain expectations about, she gestured vaguely, about how things should look. Marcus stared at her. This was his wife, the woman he'd promised to love and honor, the woman who'd promised the same to him, and she was asking him to hide in his own home because her guests might not like seeing him. I'll get the ice, he said finally. Thank you. You're the best. As he walked to the corner store, Marcus felt something shifting inside him, a hardening, a decision taking shape that he wasn't ready to name yet. The brunch was already underway when he returned with the ice. Through the window of their condo, he could see Ava, animated and glowing, working the room like the natural businesswoman she was. Evan was there again, along with several other people Marcus recognized from previous events. He delivered the ice to the kitchen and stood at the edge of the living room, watching his wife charm her guests. She was good at it, really good. She made everyone feel important, interesting, valued, everyone except her husband, apparently. Evan noticed him first. Marcus, good to see you again. He walked over with that wide smile that never reached his eyes. How's the cleaning business? Steady, Marcus said. That's great, really great. Evan clapped him on the shoulder. You know, I really admire people who aren't afraid of honest work. Takes real character to be the king of clean, right? The words were meant to sound complimentary, but Marcus heard the real message underneath. You're the help. Know your place. From across the room, Ava caught Marcus's eye. She smiled, but there was pleading in her expression. Please don't make waves. Please don't embarrass me. Marcus looked around the room, at the expensive art on the walls, at the city view that cost $3,000 a month, at the people in designer clothes discussing investment strategies and market opportunities. All of it bought with money from Ava's company, which she'd built with brilliance and hard work and determination. But none of it felt like home anymore. He walked to the elevator and rode down to the lobby. Calvin, the weekend doorman, was sorting mail behind the front desk. Morning, Mr. Hale, Calvin said with a genuine smile. How you doing today? Good, Calvin. Thanks for asking. Mrs. Hale having another one of her business parties? She is. Calvin nodded knowingly. Those folks sure do like their meetings. Got a delivery for you, actually. He handed Marcus a thick envelope marked Certified Mail. The return address read Mora and Dell LLP in formal lettering. Marcus didn't recognize the law firm name. Thanks, Calvin. Marcus took the elevator back upstairs, but instead of going into the condo, he sat on the hallway bench and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written on expensive paper in elegant handwriting. Dear Marcus, if you are reading this, then I am no longer able to deliver this message in person. I hope you will forgive an old man's sense of drama, but there are things that must be said, and sometimes writing is clearer than speaking. Over the past months, our conversations have meant more to me than you know. You have shown me kindness without expectation of reward. You have listened to an old man's stories and opinions with genuine interest. Most importantly, you have demonstrated character in small moments when you thought no one was watching. I have spent my life building a business and accumulating wealth, but wealth means nothing without wisdom about how to use it. And wisdom, I have learned, often comes from unexpected sources. Enclosed, you will find a key card and an address. Please visit the office listed at your earliest convenience. My attorney, Ms. Delia Mora, will be waiting to discuss certain matters that may be of interest to you. Remember what we discussed about chess. The most powerful pieces often move quietly. With respect and gratitude, Lionel Hart Marcus, read the letter 3 times. His hands were shaking slightly. Inside the envelope was a small keycard and a slip of paper with an address downtown. From inside the condo, he could hear laughter and conversation. Ava's voice rising above the rest, explaining some new market strategy. The sound of success and confidence and belonging. Marcus stood up, keycard in his hand, and walked toward the elevator. For the first time in 24 hours, he felt something that wasn't hurt, or anger, or confusion. He felt curious. The address led to a modest office building in the financial district. Nothing fancy, but solid and professional. Marcus used the keycard to access the elevator and rode up to the third floor. Suite 314 had a simple nameplate: Hart Estate Planning. Marcus knocked and heard a woman's voice call, "Come in." The office was small but elegant. Bookshelves lined the walls filled with legal texts and chess strategy guides. Behind a mahogany desk sat a Latina woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. "You must be Marcus," she said, standing to shake his hand. "I'm Delia Mora. Mr. Hart spoke of you often." "He did? Oh, yes. Please, sit down. Would you like some coffee? Water?" "Water would be good," Marcus said. His mouth felt dry. Delia poured 2 glasses from a pitcher on her desk and sat back down. "I suppose you're wondering why you're here." The thought crossed my mind. Mr. Hart was very specific about how this should be handled. He wanted to be sure you understood his reasoning before we discussed the practical details. She gestured toward a computer monitor on her desk. "He recorded a message for you." The screen flickered to life, and there was Mr. Hart, sitting in what looked like this same office. He appeared frailer than Marcus remembered, but his eyes were still sharp and kind. "Hello, Marcus," the recorded image said. "If you're watching this, then Delia has done her job, and you've received my letter. I hope you'll forgive an old man's sense of theater, but some messages require proper delivery." Marcus leaned forward, drawn in by the familiar voice. "I told you once that character reveals itself in small moments. Over these past months, I have watched you demonstrate character consistently. The way you helped me after my fall, not because it was your job, but because it was right. The way you listen, really listen when people speak to you. The way you treat everyone with the same respect, regardless of their position or wealth." The image of Mr. Hart paused, seeming to look directly at Marcus through the screen. "But character is not just about kindness. It's also about strength, about knowing your own worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. I fear that someone with your good heart might accept disrespect out of love or loyalty. That would be a waste of a good man." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Somehow, Mr. Hart had seen what was happening in his marriage before Marcus himself fully understood it. "Therefore," the recorded voice continued, "I am leaving you controlling interest in Hart Technologies, along with the associated assets and properties. The total value is approximately $12 million. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He gripped the arms of his chair, certain he had misheard. "I know this comes as a shock," Mr. Hart's image continued, "but I have thought about this decision carefully. You have shown me that you understand the value of quiet competence. You know how to work hard without needing constant recognition. Most importantly, you know the difference between respect and mere politeness." The recording paused again. Mr. Hart's eyes seemed to twinkle with something that might have been mischief. "What you do with this gift is entirely up to you. You can sell everything and walk away rich. You can run the company yourself. You can use your position to test the character of others. The choice is yours. But whatever you decide, remember that power used quietly is often more effective than power used loudly." The screen went dark. Marcus sat in silence, staring at the blank monitor. $12 million. Controlling interest. The words didn't seem real. I know it's a lot to process, Delia said gently. Mr. Hart was very specific about wanting to give you time to think before making any decisions. This can't be real, Marcus said quietly. People don't just. This doesn't happen. It does happen, more often than you might think. Wealthy people without family often leave their estates to individuals who have shown them genuine kindness. Delia opened a folder on her desk. The paperwork is all in order. The will has been probated. You are now the majority shareholder of Hart Technologies. Marcus looked at the documents she spread across the desk, legal papers covered with official stamps and signatures, his name appearing again and again next to phrases like controlling interest and primary beneficiary. What does this mean exactly? He asked. It means you own 51% of a successful technology company. It means you have voting control over all major decisions. It means you are, quite literally, now a very wealthy man. Marcus thought about Ava upstairs at her brunch, charming investors and discussing market strategies. He thought about Evan Pierce's condescending smile and comments about good help. He thought about being seated at the staff table while his wife laughed with her friends. Can I think about this? He asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Marcus? Delia leaned forward slightly. Mr. Hart chose you for a reason. He saw something in you that perhaps you don't see in yourself yet. Don't waste that gift. Marcus stood up, his legs unsteady. Thank you for everything. There's one more thing, Delia said as he reached the door. Mr. Hart left instructions that if you choose to exercise your voting rights, the next board meeting is Wednesday afternoon. Just something to keep in mind. Marcus nodded and walked out into the hallway. The elevator ride down felt like descending from one world into another. Outside, the city looked exactly the same as it had an hour ago. But everything else had changed. He sat in his car for a long time, staring at the folder of documents Delia had given him. Somewhere in those papers was the power to change everything. The power to never again accept being treated as less than equal. The question was, what was he going to do with it? Marcus drove home slowly, taking the long way through Golden Gate Park. He needed time to think before facing Ava and her brunch guests. The folder of legal documents sat on the passenger seat like a time bomb. $12 million, controlling interest in a technology company, the power to vote on major decisions. It felt like something from a movie, not his real life. By the time he got back to the building, the brunch was winding down. Marcus could see people saying their goodbyes. Through the window as he parked, he sat in his car and waited until the last guest left before going upstairs. Ava was cleaning up when he walked in. She looked happy, energized by the successful event. There you are, she said, loading glasses into the dishwasher. Where did you disappear to? Had some errands to run, Marcus said. It wasn't exactly a lie. The brunch went really well. Evan thinks he can bring in 2 new investors by the end of the month. She paused in her cleaning and looked at him. You seem quiet. Everything okay? Marcus looked at his wife, really looked at her. She was beautiful and brilliant and driven. She was also the woman who had seated him at the staff table last night and asked him to keep a low profile in his own home this morning. Just tired, he said. Long night at work. You should rest. I'm going to visit my mother this afternoon. Some family drama I need to help her sort out. Marcus nodded. Ava's mother, Clara Whitmore, lived in a Nob Hill townhouse and treated everyone like servants, including Marcus, especially Marcus. I think I'll visit Renee, Marcus said. Good idea. You two always have fun together. Ava kissed his cheek and gathered her purse and car keys. After she left, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and spread out the documents from Mr. Hart's estate. He read through everything twice, trying to make sense of the legal language. The numbers were real. The signatures were legitimate. In the span of one morning, he had gone from a night shift janitor to the majority owner of a successful technology company. His phone buzzed. A text from Renee. Sunday dinner. I'm making mom's pot roast recipe. Marcus smiled for the first time all day. I'll be there. Need to talk. He gathered up the papers and drove to Renee's apartment in the Mission District. His sister lived in a small one-bedroom place above a bakery. The building was old but well-maintained, and the smell of fresh bread always made it feel like home. Renee opened the door before he could knock. She was 2 years younger than Marcus, but she had always been the wise one in the family. Nursing school had taught her how to read people, how to see past what they wanted you to see. You look like someone who's had a very strange day, she said, hugging him. That might be the understatement of the year, Marcus said. Her apartment was small but cozy. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with nursing textbooks and romance novels. The kitchen barely fit two people, but somehow, Renee always managed to create meals that felt like celebrations. Sit, she said, pointing to the small table by the window. Tell me everything. Marcus pulled out the folder and spread the documents across her table. Renee's eyes widened as she read. Marcus, she said quietly, this is crazy? Life-changing? She looked up at him. How are you feeling about it? I don't know. Overwhelmed, confused, like maybe I'm dreaming. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Yesterday, I was a janitor, married to a CEO who was ashamed of me. Today, I'm technically her boss. Renee was quiet for a moment, studying her brother's face. What happened yesterday? Marcus told her about the dinner at the Whitmore Club, about being seated at the staff table, about Evan's jokes and Ava's laughter, about this morning's request to keep a low profile. Renee listened without interrupting. When he finished, she reached across the table and took his hand. I'm sorry, she said simply. That was cruel. The thing is, Marcus said, I keep trying to make excuses for her. She was protecting her business. She was managing difficult people. She was under pressure. But I can't stop hearing her laugh. She thought it was funny. The idea that I know mops better than menus. She thought that was amusing. Renee squeezed his hand. What are you going to do? I don't know. Mr. Hart left me this power, but I'm not sure what he expected me to do with it. What do you want to do? Marcus was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, families were walking to the park, normal people living normal lives. Yesterday, he had been one of them. Today, everything was different. I want her to see me, he said finally. Really see me. Not as an accessory or an embarrassment or a brand risk, just as me. And if she can't, then I guess I'll know where we really stand. They cooked dinner together, falling into the easy rhythm they'd shared since childhood. Renee told him about her work at the hospital, about the patients she was helping, about the new nursing students she was training. Normal conversation that helped Marcus feel grounded. After dinner, they sat on her small balcony and watched the sun set over the city. The fog was rolling in from the ocean, wrapping the hills in gray cotton. Can I ask you something? Renee said. Always. Are you going to tell Ava? Marcus had been wondering the same thing. I don't know. Part of me wants to see what happens if I don't. See how she treats me when she thinks I have no power. That sounds like a test. Maybe it is. Just remember, Renee said, tests can go both ways. You might not like what you learn about yourself either. Marcus nodded. His sister was right, as usual, but he wasn't ready to face that possibility yet. Monday morning, Ava left early for a series of investor meetings. Marcus watched her go, noting how she checked her reflection 3 times in the hallway mirror before walking out. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to project success and control. After she left, Marcus called in sick to his janitorial job. He needed time to think, and he couldn't face mopping floors while owning $12 million worth of stock options. Instead, he drove back to Mr. Hart's office building. He had a key card now. He was the owner. But he still felt like an imposter as he rode the elevator to the 14th floor. The Hart Technologies offices were busy, about 20 employees working at computers, developing software, managing client accounts. They all looked up when Marcus walked in, clearly wondering who the black man in jeans and a t-shirt was. "Can I help you?" asked a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings. "I'm looking for the office manager," Marcus said. I'm the new... I'm Marcus Hale." Recognition dawned in her eyes. "Oh, you're the guy who... Mr. Hart talked about you. I'm Jenny. Let me get Sarah." Sarah turned out to be a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She led Marcus to a small conference room and closed the door. "Mr. Hart left instructions," she said, pulling out a file. "He said if you ever came by, I should show you how everything works, give you the real picture, not just the numbers." For the next 2 hours, Sarah walked Marcus through the business. Hart Technologies develops software for small businesses, inventory management, customer tracking, financial planning. Nothing glamorous, but solid and profitable. The company employed 23 people and generated about $2 million in revenue each year. "Mr. Hart always said the best businesses solve real problems for real people," Sarah explained. "We're not trying to change the world. We're just trying to help people run their shops and restaurants and services a little better." Marcus liked that philosophy. It was honest, practical, the opposite of the flashy, venture capital funded startups Ava and her friends were always discussing. "What happens now?" he asked. "That's up to you. You're the majority shareholder. You can sell your stake and walk away. You can keep things running as they are, or you can take a more active role." Sarah paused. "Mr. Hart hoped you'd choose to stay involved, but he understood if you didn't want the responsibility." Marcus looked around the conference room. Through the glass walls, he could see employees working quietly at their desks. These people depended on this company for their livelihoods. Whatever he decided would affect all of them. "Can I have some time to think about it?" "Of course, but there is one thing you should know. We have a board meeting Wednesday afternoon. As the controlling shareholder, you have the right to vote on all major decisions." Marcus remembered what Delia had mentioned about the board meeting. "What's being decided?" Sarah's expression grew serious. "There's a buyout offer. A larger company wants to purchase Hart Technologies. The offer is generous, but it would mean significant layoffs and changes to our business model." What did Mr. Hart think about it? He was against it, but he died before the vote could take place. The other board members are split. Marcus felt a weight settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about money or power. It was about people's jobs, people's futures. "I'll be there Wednesday," he said. That evening, Marcus got home before Ava. He sat at their kitchen table and stared at the Hart Technologies folder. In 3 days, he had gone from invisible husband to company owner with the power to affect 23 people's careers. Ava came home around 7, looking exhausted but pleased. "Good day?" Marcus asked. "Really good. I think we're going to close the Henderson deal. It would be our biggest contract yet." She kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the couch. "How was your day off?" "Quiet. Did some thinking." "About what?" Marcus almost told her then. Almost spread the documents across their coffee table and watched her expression change. But something held him back. "Just work stuff," he said instead. "Well, don't think too hard. It's just a job, right?" The words stung, even though she didn't mean them to. Just a job. As if what he did for a living was somehow less important than what she did. "Right," Marcus said quietly. Tuesday passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus read everything he could find about Hart Technologies, studied the buyout offer, researched the company that wanted to purchase them. The more he learned, the more he understood Mr. Hart's opposition to the deal. The purchasing company was known for acquiring small businesses and stripping them for parts. They would keep the profitable software products and eliminate everything else. Most of the current employees would lose their jobs. That evening, Ava had another networking event, some sort of venture capital mixer downtown. She asked Marcus if he wanted to come. "It might be good for you to meet some people," she said. "Maybe someone knows of better opportunities." Better opportunities. Because cleaning office buildings wasn't good enough for the husband of a successful CEO. "I'll pass," Marcus said. "Have fun." After she left, Marcus called Delia Mora. "I've been wondering when I'd hear from you," she said. "How are you processing everything?" "I think I want to go to the board meeting tomorrow," Marcus said. "But I want to do it quietly. No announcements, no big reveals. Can we set that up?" "Absolutely. Mr. Hart actually anticipated that request. We can arrange for you to participate by phone. Your identity will remain private." "Perfect." "Marcus, may I ask what you're planning?" "I'm planning to save some jobs," Marcus said, "and maybe learn something about myself in the process." Wednesday afternoon arrived gray and drizzling. Marcus sat in his car outside the Hart Technologies building, watching employees hurry in from the rain. At 3:50, his phone rang. "We're ready for you," Delia said. "I'll patch you into the conference line." Marcus took a deep breath and pressed the accept button. Suddenly, he could hear voices in the Hart Technologies conference room, board members settling into their chairs, shuffling papers, making small talk. He recognized one of the voices immediately. Ava was there. "Before we begin," came an unfamiliar male voice, "I want to acknowledge that we have a new participant joining us today. The controlling shareholders representative will be participating by phone." "Representative?" Ava's voice was sharp with interest. "I thought the estate was still in probate." "The estate has been settled," came Delia's voice. "The new shareholder has asked to remain anonymous for now." Marcus listened as the board members introduced themselves. Besides Ava, there were four other people: two local business owners, a retired tech executive, and a venture capitalist named Warren Shields. The buyout discussion began immediately. Warren argued strongly for accepting the offer. The price was good, he said. The market was uncertain. It was better to take guaranteed money than risk an unknown future. "I have to agree with Warren." Ava's voice came through clearly. "From a strategic standpoint, this is exactly the kind of exit opportunity smart investors look for." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. His wife was arguing for a decision that would cost 23 people their jobs. The two local business owners disagreed. They talked about Hart Technologies' reputation in the community, about the loyalty of long-term employees, about Mr. Hart's vision for the company. "With respect to Mr. Hart's memory," Ava said, "sentiment doesn't pay bills. This offer represents a 40% premium over current market value. Any rational analysis points toward acceptance." Rational analysis. Marcus remembered that phrase from their early conversations. Ava always prided herself on making logical decisions based on facts rather than emotions. But what about loyalty? What about responsibility to employees who had worked faithfully for years? "I'd like to hear from our new shareholder," came another voice. "As the controlling interest, their opinion carries significant weight." This was it, Marcus's moment to reveal himself, to show Ava who he really was. Instead, he kept his voice steady and professional. "I appreciate everyone's perspectives," he said, "but I vote no on the buyout offer." Silence. Then Warren's voice, frustrated. "May I ask your reasoning?" "Hart Technologies is profitable and growing. The employees are skilled and loyal. Mr. Hart built something sustainable here, not just something to flip for quick profit." Marcus paused. "Sometimes the best investment is in continuity, not change." That's a very idealistic view, Ava said, and Marcus could hear the condescension in her tone. But idealism doesn't generate returns. Neither does destroying functional businesses for short-term gain, Marcus replied calmly. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, but the outcome was decided. As controlling shareholder, Marcus's vote was final. Hart Technologies would remain independent. After the call ended, Marcus sat in his car and tried to process what had just happened. He had saved 23 jobs and preserved Mr. Hart's legacy, but he had also seen a side of his wife that made his chest ache. She had been willing to eliminate those jobs for profit. She had dismissed concerns about employees as idealistic and irrational. The woman he loved had failed a test she didn't even know she was taking. Marcus drove home slowly, dreading the conversation he knew was coming. Ava's car was already in the parking garage when he arrived. She was pacing the living room when he walked in, her phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what you think about mystery shareholders," she was saying. "Find out who it is and what they want. Nobody votes down a deal like that without an agenda." She hung up and turned to Marcus. "You'll never believe what happened today." "Try me," Marcus said quietly. "Some anonymous investor killed the biggest deal Hart Technologies has seen in years. Just voted it down, no explanation, no negotiation." She threw her hands up in frustration. "It makes no business sense whatsoever." Marcus looked at his wife. Beautiful, brilliant, successful Ava. The woman who had laughed when her friends called him janitor trash. The woman who had just argued for eliminating 23 jobs to maximize profit. "Maybe they had their reasons," he said. "What reasons? It was free money." "Maybe they thought the employees mattered more than the profit." Ava stared at him. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that keeps people poor, Marcus. You can't run a business on sentiment." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus felt something break inside his chest, something that had been cracked since Friday night at the Whitmore Club. "You're right," he said finally. "I wouldn't know anything about running a business." He walked to the bedroom and closed the door. Outside, he could hear Ava making more phone calls, trying to figure out who had disrupted her perfect deal. Marcus lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he would have to decide what to do next. Whether to reveal the truth to his wife, whether their marriage could survive what he had learned about both of them. But tonight, 23 people would go home to their families, secure in their jobs. Tonight, Mr. Hart's vision would live on for at least a little longer. It wasn't everything, but it was something. And for the first time since Friday night, Marcus felt like himself again. Thursday morning came with fog so thick Marcus couldn't see the building across the street. He woke up alone. Ava had already left for an early breakfast meeting with potential investors who might help her understand the mystery shareholder situation. Marcus made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the gray nothing beyond their windows. The Hart Technologies documents were still in their folder, tucked away in his dresser drawer like a secret that was getting heavier by the day. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah at Hart Tech. "Employees want to thank whoever voted no yesterday. Should I tell them it's confidential?" Marcus typed back. "Keep it quiet for now. But tell them Mr. Hart would be proud." He set down his phone and made a decision. It was time to stop hiding. But first, he needed to understand what he was really dealing with. Marcus drove to Ava's mother's townhouse in Pacific Heights. Clara Whitmore lived in the kind of old money elegance that made the Whitmore Club look modest. Everything was antique, expensive, and designed to remind visitors of their place in the social hierarchy. The housekeeper, Rosa, answered the door with a warm smile. She was a Latina woman about Renee's age who had worked for the Whitmores for 5 years. "Mr. Marcus," she said quietly, "Mrs. Whitmore is in the garden room. But maybe Maybe you want some coffee first. Rosa had always been kind to Marcus, treating him with the respect that Clara consistently withheld. He suspected she was trying to warn him about something. Is she in a mood? He asked. When is she not? Rosa replied with a conspiratorial smile. Marcus found Clara Whitmore arranging white orchids in a crystal vase. She was 56 but looked 40 thanks to excellent plastic surgery and a personal trainer. Everything about her was precisely controlled, from her platinum blonde hair to her cream-colored designer dress. Marcus, she said without looking up from the flowers, how unexpected. Mrs. Whitmore, I was hoping we could talk. About what? She finally turned to face him, her blue eyes cold and evaluating. About Ava. About our marriage. Clara's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I see. Having second thoughts about marrying above your station? The words were designed to hurt. 3 days ago, they would have worked. Today, Marcus just felt tired. Something like that, he said. Sit down. Clara gestured toward a white silk chair that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Let's have an honest conversation for once. Marcus sat. Clara poured herself tea from a silver service and didn't offer him any. You know, she said, settling into her own chair. I always wondered what Ava saw in you. Don't get me wrong, you're a nice enough man, polite, hard-working, but hardly what one would expect for someone of Ava's caliber. What would one expect? Marcus asked quietly. Someone from her world, someone who understands the demands of her position, someone who adds value to her brand rather than… Clara paused delicately. Rather than requiring constant management. Is that what you think I do? Require management? Don't you? Clara's voice was matter of fact, almost kind. The separate seating at club events, the low-profile requests during business functions, the careful introductions that downplay your background. That's not marriage, Marcus. That's damage control. The words hit Marcus like physical blows, but there was truth in them that he couldn't ignore. Ava loves you, Clara continued, in her way, but love isn't always enough, is it? Sometimes people grow in different directions. Sometimes what worked at the beginning stops working. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe it would be kinder to everyone, including yourself, to acknowledge that this experiment has run its course. Marcus looked at this woman who had never shown him anything but polite disdain. She was offering him an exit strategy, a way to walk away with his dignity intact. All he had to do was agree that he wasn't good enough for her daughter. You might be right, he said finally. Clara's eyebrows rose slightly. She had clearly expected more of a fight. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this, she said. Ava's company is at a crucial stage. She needs stability, not complications. Complications like a janitor husband. I didn't say that. You didn't need to. Marcus stood up. Thank you for the honest conversation, Mrs. Whitmore. It was illuminating. As he walked toward the door, Clara called after him. Marcus, for what it's worth, I do think you're a good man. You're just not the right man for my daughter. Marcus paused at the doorway. Maybe, he said, or maybe your daughter isn't the right woman for me. It was the first time in 3 years that he had seen Clara Whitmore look genuinely surprised. That afternoon, Marcus went back to Hart Technologies. This time, he didn't skulk around or make excuses. He walked into the office like he belonged there. Mr. Hale? Sarah said, looking up from her desk. Good to see you again. I want to call a staff meeting, Marcus said. Nothing formal. Just want to talk to everyone. 20 minutes later, the entire Hart Technologies team was gathered in the main workspace. Programmers, customer service representatives, accountants, designers, all looking at Marcus with curious expressions. I know you're all wondering about yesterday's board meeting, Marcus said. about who voted to keep the company independent. Nods around the room. Someone in the back called out, "Best news we've had in months." I want you to know that decision wasn't made lightly, but Mr. Hart built something special here, something worth preserving. Marcus looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. You're all part of that. Your work matters. Your jobs matter. And as long as I have anything to say about it, that's not going to change. A woman named Janet raised her hand. Are you the new owner? Marcus smiled. I'm someone who believes in what you're all doing here. That's what matters. After the meeting, Marcus spent 2 hours walking through the office, talking to employees about their work, their ideas for the company, their concerns about the future. These were good people doing meaningful work. Mr. Hart had been right to trust them. When Marcus got home that evening, Ava was waiting for him in the living room. She looked exhausted and frustrated. We need to talk, she said. Okay. I've been thinking about yesterday, about the board meeting and the mystery shareholder. She rubbed her temples. Something doesn't add up. What do you mean? The decision doesn't make financial sense, but the reasoning sounded familiar somehow. She looked up at Marcus. The way they talked about employee loyalty and sustainable business practices, it reminded me of things you've said. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Did it? Marcus, do you know something about this? About who this person is? This was it. The moment of truth. Marcus could lie, deflect, buy himself more time, or he could finally be honest about everything. Yes, he said quietly. I do. Ava's eyes sharpened. Who is it? It's me. The words hung in the air between them. Ava stared at him, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. What? I'm the controlling shareholder of Hart Technologies. Mr. Hart left me his estate, all of it. Ava stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. That's impossible. You're a janitor. You don't even know Lionel Hart. I cleaned his offices. We became friends. He saw something in me that... Marcus paused. That apparently you don't. This is insane. Ava pulled out her phone. I'm calling Delia Mora. This has to be some kind of mistake. Go ahead, Marcus said calmly. She'll confirm everything. Ava dialed the number. Marcus could hear Delia's voice through the speaker, professional and clear. Yes, Mrs. Hale, your husband is indeed the primary beneficiary of Mr. Hart's estate. Ava hung up without saying goodbye. She stared at Marcus like she was seeing him for the first time. $12 million, Marcus said. That's what it's worth. $12 million that you wanted to help someone else profit from by eliminating 23 jobs. I was giving sound business advice. You were treating people like numbers on a spreadsheet. That's what business is, Marcus. You can't save everyone. You can't make decisions based on feelings. And you can't make a marriage work when you're ashamed of your husband. The words came out harder than Marcus intended. Ava flinched as if he had slapped her. I'm not ashamed of you. You seated me at the staff table. That was about optics. You asked me to hide in my own home. The investors are conservative. You laughed when Evan called me janitor trash. That stopped her. Ava's face went pale. Marcus, I heard you. I was sitting right there, and I heard every word, and instead of defending me, you laughed along. Ava sank back into her chair. For the first time since he'd known her, she looked small. I was protecting my business, she whispered, by sacrificing your husband. They sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the fog was starting to lift, revealing the city lights beginning to twinkle in the distance. What happens now? Ava asked finally. I don't know, Marcus said honestly. I'm still trying to figure out who we really are. Are you going to leave me? The question hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Marcus looked at his wife, brilliant, driven, successful Ava, and saw someone who was terrified of losing control. I don't know that either, he said, but I'm not going to keep pretending that being treated like your shameful secret is okay. I'm worth more than that. Ava nodded slowly. Tears were starting to form in her eyes. I need time, Marcus said, to think, to figure out what I want. Where will you go? I'll stay with Renee for a while. Marcus packed a bag while Ava sat on their bed, watching silently. When he was done, he paused at the bedroom door. For what it's worth, he said, I still love you, but love isn't enough if there's no respect. He left the apartment and drove through the foggy streets to Renee's place. His sister took one look at his face and opened her arms. Come here, she said, pulling him into a hug. I told her, Marcus said into her shoulder. Everything. How did she take it? About as well as you'd expect. They sat on Renee's small couch and Marcus told her everything that had happened. About Clara's brutal honesty, about the staff meeting at Heart Technologies, about Ava's reaction to learning the truth. What are you going to do now? Renee asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to fight for the marriage. Part of me thinks it might already be over. What does your gut tell you? Marcus was quiet for a long time. That may be some bridges burned for a reason. Over the next few days, Marcus settled into a routine at Renee's place. He slept on her pull-out couch, helped with grocery shopping and cooking, and spent his days learning how to run Heart Technologies. Sarah proved to be an invaluable guide, walking him through everything from financial reports to employee reviews. The company was more complex than Marcus had realized, but it was also more rewarding. Every piece of software they developed helped a small business owner manage their inventory or track their customers or plan their finances. Mr. Hart always said we were in the business of making people's lives a little bit easier, Sarah explained as they reviewed the quarterly numbers. Not changing the world, just improving small corners of it. Marcus liked that philosophy. It was honest work with honest impact. On Friday afternoon, his phone rang. It was Ava. Marcus, I've been thinking about what you said, about respect and everything else. Okay, I want to try, to do better, to be better. Marcus felt something stir in his chest. Hope, maybe, or just old love refusing to die quietly. What does that look like? He asked. I don't know yet, but I fired Evan Pierce as an advisor yesterday, and I want to make a public statement about the Heart Technologies decision. Give you credit for protecting those jobs. I don't need credit, but you deserve it, and I should have been the one defending you, not the one you needed defending from. Marcus closed his eyes. It was a start. Maybe not enough, but a start. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. That Saturday, Marcus drove to the Heart Technologies office building. He used his keycard to access the building after hours and rode the elevator to the 14th floor. The offices were quiet and empty. Marcus walked through the workspace, looking at the desks and computers and family photos. These 23 jobs he had saved represented 23 lives, 23 families, 23 people who could sleep securely tonight. In Mr. Hart's old office, the chess set was still sitting on the side table. Marcus studied the position and realized it was the same puzzle Mr. Hart had been working on during their last conversation. Mate in 2 moves. Marcus moved the knight, checking the black king and forcing checkmate on the next move. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Sometimes the most powerful pieces did indeed move quietly. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. I know you need space, but when you're ready to talk, I'll be here. I love you. Marcus looked out the window at the city below. Lights were coming on in windows across San Francisco. People coming home from work, making dinner, spending time with their families. Normal people living normal lives. 3 weeks ago, Marcus had been one of them. Tonight, he was a millionaire business owner with the power to shape other people's futures. But he was also a man whose wife had needed to lose him to realize she should respect him. He wasn't sure which version of himself he trusted more. Marcus locked up the office and drove home to Renee's apartment. Tomorrow, he would have to make more decisions about the company, about his marriage, about what kind of life he wanted to build with the power Mr. Hart had given him. But tonight, he was content to sit on his sister's couch and eat takeout Chinese food while she told him about her day at the hospital. Simple moments with someone who had always seen his worth, even when he couldn't see it himself. His phone rang around 9. Ava's name appeared on the screen. Marcus stared at it for several rings before answering. "Hi," he said. "Hi, I just wanted you to know I drafted a statement about us, about how proud I am to be married to you. I haven't published it yet, but it's ready when you are." Marcus looked across the room at Renee, who was pretending to read while obviously listening to his conversation. "What does it say?" "The truth, that I've been an idiot, that you're the best man I know, that anyone who has a problem with our marriage can find somewhere else to invest their money." The words should have felt like victory. Instead, they felt sad. "Ava? Yeah? Don't publish it for me. Don't publish it for us. Only publish it if it's true." Silence on the line. Then, quietly, "It is true. It's just taken me too long to be brave enough to say it." "Then say it, but say it because it's who you want to be, not because you're afraid of losing me." "Okay." After they hung up, Marcus sat in the darkness of Renee's living room. Outside, the city hummed with its endless energy. Somewhere in Pacific Heights, Ava was probably staring at her laptop screen, deciding whether she had the courage to choose love over image. Somewhere else, 23 Heart Technologies employees were sleeping peacefully, secure in their jobs. And somewhere in between, Marcus was learning that the quietest victories were often the most profound. He wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in weeks, that uncertainty felt like possibility rather than fear. Mr. Hart had been right about the power of moving quietly. Sometimes the most important changes happened not with grand gestures, but with simple choices made in small moments when nobody else was watching. Marcus pulled out his phone and typed a text to Ava. "Whatever you decide to publish, make sure it's something you can live with, not just something you think I want to hear." Then he turned off the phone and went to sleep on his sister's couch, surrounded by the smell of fresh bread from the bakery downstairs and the sound of a city full of people trying to figure out their own quiet victories. Tomorrow would bring new choices. Tonight, he was exactly where he belonged.